Hello, my lovely kids. You are welcome again to another Cafdil Science Lessons. My name is Ernest Ato Bento. Kids, we started learning about some groups of some animals. We talked about insects, we talked about birds, we talked about mammals, and then reptiles in our last lesson. Today, we are still on the group of animals. And today we are going to look at amphibians. Okay, the topic for today is on amphibians. I know you have heard the word amphibian before. They are a group of animals and we are going to look at them today in this lesson. But before we do that, let's mark the homework on some benefits we get from reptiles. 1. State any 3 benefits of reptiles to humans. State any 3 benefits of reptiles to humans. 1. The meat of some reptiles serve as source of food for humans. In that lesson you saw lizard, snake, meat being eaten by people. 2. Some reptiles like snakes eat rodents which destroy food crops. And lastly, skins of some reptiles, alligators, snakes and crocodiles are used to make belts, bags, shoes and sandals. Okay, these are some of the benefits we get from some reptiles as humans, and I believe you had the answers to these questions right. Now let's look at a topic on amphibians. Okay, at the end of the lesson you will be able to describe what an amphibian is. What an amphibian is. To give 3 examples of amphibians and then mention 3 features of amphibians. So Kate, if you pay attention and we all go through the lesson, at the end you will be able to describe what an amphibian is, give 3 examples of amphibians and mention 3 features of amphibians. Good. Now let's begin the lesson. What is an amphibian? What is an amphibian? Amphibians are animals that can live both on land and in water. So if you hear the word amphibian, we are talking about 2 lives. 2 lives. They spend some of their life in water and some on land. The fact that we humans can also sometimes go to the beach and swim in water doesn't make us amphibians. When you talk about amphibians, they have some internal organs that help them to live in water. If you drown in water right now, Kate, you will die because you don't have organs that will support you to breathe in water. But when we talk about amphibians, they have organs that help them to breathe in water as well as breathe on land. When you are on land, you need oxygen to survive. And when you breathe in, the oxygen gets into your lungs and then they get to your blood. When you are in water, you see that when you write the formula for water, we have hydrogen, we have oxygen. 2 hydrogen atoms and one oxygen make up water. So there is oxygen in water. So if you live in water, you need an organ called gills to help you breathe in water. We don't have gills. Amphibians have gills and they have lungs. So they can breathe in water, they can breathe on land. So they have 2 lives. So when we talk about amphibians, they are animals that can live both on land and in water. Let's look at some examples of amphibians. The first one is frog. Frog. So what you see on your screen now is a frog. Frog. So a frog is an example of an amphibian. Frog. I hope you have all seen frogs before. when it rains, you hear their noises in pool of water. Yeah, frog. So you see the frog breathing, but they can breathe on land. So this is a frog. A frog is an example of an amphibian. The next one is toad. Toad. Kids, you will look at the difference between a toad and a frog. Most of the ones that we see around are toads. They are not frogs. They are toads. Most of the ones we see around are toads. And after the examples, you look at some differences so that when you see them, you can differentiate between a frog and a toad. So this is a toad. The next example of amphibian is salamander. So this is an example of an amphibian, salamander. So we looked at frog, toad, and now salamander. This is a salamander, an example of amphibian. They live in water and on land as well. They have organs that help them to breathe in water and organs that help them to breathe on land. So kids, this is a salamander, an example of amphibian. This is another type of salamander. They come in different colors. The next example is newt. So this is a newt, an example of amphibian. Newt. So we looked at a frog, a toad, a salamander, and now newt. So a newt is also an example of amphibian. I believe the common ones that we see are toads and frogs. So we looked at a frog and then a toad. Now kids, let's look at a frog and a toad. What are the difference between a frog and toad? Frogs and toads, what are the differences? 1. A frog has thin, smooth, wet skin. So if you look at the skin, it's smooth. But when you look at the toad, they have thick, rough, dry skin. So there is one difference between a frog and a toad. The frog has thin, smooth, wet skin, and the toad has thick, rough, dry skin. So look at the skin of the toad and that of the frog. You see the difference. 2. Frog is smaller in size. Toad is bigger in size. Frog is smaller in size. Toad is bigger in size. 3. Frogs mostly live in water. That is why they have wet skin. And toads mostly live on land. That is why they have dry skin. And then frogs has long legs, and then toad has short legs. So in movement, the frogs leap. They move by leaping, a long jump, and then the toad move by hopping. So okay, these are the differences. So most of the ones we see around are toads, not frogs. Good. We also looked at the salamander and then a newt. Good. So these are 4 examples of amphibians. Now let's look at some features. What are some features of amphibians? What makes them fit into the group of amphibians? 1. Amphibians are vertebrates. This means they have backbones. So this is the backbone. In humans, we call this spinal cord. So amphibians also have backbone, and this is the backbone. So amphibians have backbones. Good. 2. Amphibians have smooth, slippery, and wet skin. Most of them have slippery and wet skin. They have slippery and wet skin, just like the frog and the salamander. Good. They must stay near water to prevent the skin from drying. They must stay near water to prevent the skin from drying. So anywhere you see frog, you will see that there is a pond nearby, because they must stay near water to prevent the skin from drying. If the skin dries, frogs breathe through their skin. So if the skin dries, it will affect them. Amphibians lay eggs in water. The young ones are hatched from the eggs. So amphibians, they lay eggs in water. When we talked about reptiles, some of them are even in water, but they come on land to lay eggs. So you see the frog laying eggs. When a frog is laying eggs, as the female, you see that the female is down, the male is on top. So as the female lay the eggs, the male fertilizes the eggs. That is how they lay their eggs. They will need a male to fertilize the eggs as the female lay eggs. And young ones are hatched from the eggs. Kids, also know that if you take any egg, you see that the egg is protected by a shell. The egg is protected by a shell. You break the shell before you get to the albumin and the yolk. That forms the egg. But when you talk about amphibians, their eggs do not have shells. That is why they lay their eggs in water. Their eggs do not have shells. So when they lay the eggs on land, when the sun comes up, it will dry the eggs and it can't hatch into young ones. That is why they lay their eggs in water. That is the reason why they lay their eggs in water. They don't have shells for their eggs. And the young ones are hatched. Yeah, so these are the young ones. These are the young ones. Their young ones are hatched from the eggs. Yes. So they lay eggs in water and young ones are hatched from the eggs. A young frog or toad is called a tadpole. A tadpole, and it looks like a small fish and can't survive on land. So when they are born, or when they are hatched, they look like this. And this is what we call tadpole. A young frog is called tadpole. As they grow, their physical body changes. As they grow, their physical body changes. So it looks like a small fish and cannot survive on land. Why can't it survive on land? When they are young like this, they don't have the organs that will help them to breathe on land. They don't have it. It's when they are fully matured that they get those organs. But when they are young, they have gills, and the gills help them to breathe in water, not on land. After some time, the tadpole that we saw in water, this is the tadpole. The tadpole's long tail shrinks and it develops legs and looks like an adult frog. So this is how they develop into a big frog. This is a tadpole, and with time the legs will come. The tail will shrink. These are the hind legs. The tail will shrink, and then it will develop into a mature or adult frog. So after some time, their bodies go through some changes as they grow, and then they finally look like an adult frog. Amphibians live in water when they are hatched. and live mostly on land when they are adults. So as I said, when they are hatched initially, they don't have fully developed lungs that will help them to breathe on land. So when they finally mature into adults, they spend most of their time on land. Amphibians have webbed feet. And what are webbed feet? We also have feet. You have 2 feet. Amphibians also have feet, but their feet are called webbed feet. Why? The webbed feet are like this. You see that in between our toes, we don't have any membrane like this that links the toes together, but this is what we call webbed feet. There's a membrane that links the toes together. And why these webbed feet? These webbed feet help them to swim in water. These webbed feet help them to swim in water. So amphibians have webbed feet, and the webbed feet help them to swim in water. Amphibians breathe through their nostrils and lungs when on land. So you see this frog breathing. You see it as we also breathe. You see the frog breathing. And when they breathe, it goes through the lung. This is the lung. They have 2 lungs, just as humans. We have lungs. They also have lungs. So when they are on land, they breathe through their nostrils. Our nostrils, we have the nose, and we have 2 openings that are called nostrils. They don't have the nose. They have the nostrils straight. So they breathe through the nostrils. And the air get to the lungs and get to the body. So amphibians breathe through their nostrils and lungs when on land. They breathe through their skin and gills when in water. So this is how the gills looks like. And they can also breathe through their skin when they are in water. They also breathe through their skin when they are in water. So this is the gills that help them to breathe. So the water will get through the gills, and then it will absorb the oxygen from the water, and then the frog will use it. So this is what we call the gills, and they can also breathe through the skin when they are in water. Frogs do not drink water as we do. They absorb water directly through their skin in an area known as drinking patch. So if you look at this, when we want to drink water, we don't drink it. We take water through our mouth, but frogs do not take water as we do. They don't drink water through their mouth. They have a part of the body called drinking patch, and that is what we call the drinking patch. Just at their abdomen, there are some holes there that they drink water through them. So frogs drink water through the drinking patch, and this is where the drinking patch is located. So you will not see any frog drinking or taking water like this as we do. They take water through the drinking patch here. Now let's look at some facts. We looked at some features. What makes these animals amphibians? Now let's look at some facts about amphibians. Some facts. Okay, the largest frog is the Goliath frog. In the Bible, when you hear about the word Goliath, you are talking about a very huge human being, as in the Bible, who fought David, and David defeated Goliath. So the largest frog is called a Goliath frog. Let's look at how actually it is. So this is a Goliath frog. This boy is holding a Goliath frog. Look at how big it is. So the name of the largest frog is called a Goliath frog. A group of frogs is called an army. So when you see group of frogs moving together, you call them army of frogs. Group of frogs moving together, you call it army of frogs. Like this, you see group of frogs moving, you call it army of frogs. And then kids, this wonderful thing, newts and salamanders can regrow legs when they are lost. Newts and salamanders. So if a salamander loses a leg, it will grow back. It will grow back. Not like we human beings, if you lose your leg, you lose it forever. But when they lose a leg, like this one, it will grow back. So let's watch how the leg will grow back. The wound will seal. Let's look at it. The bones and everything will start growing and developing, and gradually a new leg will grow back. So newts and salamanders, when they lose their legs, it regrow. See, they have a new leg, waving that I have a new leg. So remember that newts and salamanders can regrow their legs when they are lost. Good. Frogs cannot live in salty water. Frogs cannot live in salty water. That is another fact about frogs. As I said, the ones we see around are toads. They can survive in salty water, but frogs cannot survive in salty water. So right now that you know the difference, if it rains and they keep on disturbing you behind your window, if they are frogs, you can just sprinkle salt into the water and they will run away or it will kill them. So frogs hate salty water, but toads can survive in salty water. So that is another fact about frogs. Good. We are almost at the end of the lesson. Okay, and today we looked at amphibians. We looked at what an amphibian is. They are a group of animals that can live both on land and in water. We looked about some examples of amphibians: frog, toad, salamander, and then the newt are examples of amphibians. And then we looked at some features of amphibians. They have backbone. They lay eggs in water because their eggs do not have shells. So if they lay it on land, it will dry out. When they are born, they are in water, and when they grow up, they come on land. So these are some of the features, and we also looked at some facts about amphibians. Good. Now before we leave, let's test ourselves as usual. 1. An amphibian is an animal that lives both on land and in. An amphibian is an animal that lives both on land and in. So you have snow, you have sea, you have water. Good, the answer is water. The answer is water. 2. Which of these animals is not an amphibian? Which of these animals is not an amphibian? We have lizard, we have frog, we have toad. Good. Lizard is not an amphibian. Lizard is a reptile. Good. 3. What is the name of the world's largest frog? What is the name of the world's largest frog? We have bullfrog, we have Goliath frog, we have white frog. Great. The answer is Goliath frog. Good. 4. How do most amphibians reproduce? How do most amphibians reproduce? By giving birth, by laying eggs, by spreading seeds. How do they reproduce young ones? Good. The answer is by laying eggs. And when they are laying the egg, the females will need a male. As they lay the eggs, the male will be fertilizing the eggs so that new born frogs can come out of it. 5. What kind of animal can restore a lost limb? And when we talk about a limb, we are talking about your hands and legs. So what kind of animal can restore a lost limb? We looked at when we were talking about the fact about some amphibians. So we have frog, we have salamander, we have toad. Good. The answer is salamander. When they lose a leg or limb, it will regrow. It will regrow. Good. Now, as usual, let's take this assignment and try our hands on. Let's take this homework and try our hands on. 1. What is an amphibian? What is an amphibian? 2. Give 3 examples of amphibians. Give 3 examples of amphibians. And then 3. Mention 3 features of amphibians. So, Kate, I'll give you some few minutes to write this homework down. Hello, Kate. You are welcome back. I believe you were all able to put the assignment down. Today we looked at amphibians, what they are, their features, and then their examples and some facts about them. And I believe today at least you have learned a lot about a group of animals called amphibians. Make sure you try your hands on the homework that you've been given. Until we meet again next time, this is your teacher, Ernest Ato Benson. Bye-bye.